Hi, Katie. How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm good. How was your weekend?
It was pretty good. I had a lot to do, so it was good.
What kind of things did you do?
Well, I went to my dad's and we watched some soccer, so that was fun.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you got to watch soccer. I know how much you love that. Um, but before we get started, I just want to remind you that as my client, all information that you share will be kept confidential. But legally, if you share any clear or imminent harm, danger to you or someone else, or if there's reasonable suspicion that abuse is occurring, um, or due to a court order, that would be the only time I have to talk to someone about what we share during this time. So last time that we talked about that spy and sneak game, and I just wanted to talk to you about that and see how that went. So if you remember, we came up with some behaviors that you were going to try and do around the house, things like cleaning up after dinner, maybe helping cook dinner, being nicer to mom and not raising our voice, taking the dog on a walk, and helping with dishes. We were going to try and do some of those things and then see what kind of behavior mom noticed. And I just wanted to ask how did that go?
I think it went good. I think I did more than I thought, and I helped me remember to do those things too and want to do them a little more.
Yeah. And did you feel like that helped at all with your and mom's relationship, just doing some of the chores that she needs help with?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it made her not get angry at me as quickly, but yeah.
Yeah, good. One thing specifically I wanted to ask, how was the not raising your voice? Did that go okay? I'm sure that was challenging.
Yeah, it's hard. That's the really hard part is when she gets angry, not to get angry back.
Sure. So what I hear you saying is that it was helpful. It didn't necessarily fix all of your arguments, but that it did help a little bit, and it was probably fun to see um, just all the things you can do and how you can be a good helper at home.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about this thing called mental mind games. And how it's going to work is I will read this list um, of things that sometimes can come into our head when we're in the heat of an argument. So maybe when you and mom are not getting along or disagreeing, and it can turn into an argument. So some of the things that might be going on in our head, either before, during, or after, how that can make us feel, and maybe some better ways or better things to think of instead of thinking those things. Does that sound like something you'd like to do?
Sure.
Okay. So I will read down this list of mental mind games, and when you hear me say something that you experience or that you can relate to, let me know and we'll circle it, okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the first one is during an argument, maybe. We sometimes think it is either an all or nothing, a black or white, no shades of gray.
Yeah, I think so.
Kind of, okay. The next one is sometimes we might make it a bigger deal than it is or exaggerate the truth a little bit. Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, probably.
All right. The next one is only believing what you believe is true, and we are not able to see the other point of view as possible. So we're not always able to see maybe where mom's coming from
I guess. Yeah.
sometimes. Um, let's see. Do you ever feel when you're in an argument with mom that everything's just really negative and there's nothing ever positive said?
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Definitely that one. Okay. Um, do you ever feel like you or mom might jump to conclusions where she doesn't necessarily want to hear you, or you don't necessarily want to hear her. You just maybe make an assumption.
Yeah, like she always assumes that I'm like not gonna do the chore, even though just because I haven't done it yet. And I always think that she's gonna just be angry if I tell her that I'm not gonna do it right then. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. And do you ever feel like you can do that to mom sometimes, or more do you feel
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like I just always assume she's gonna be angry when I tell her everything. So I think maybe I go into it angry already.
sure, that makes so much sense. Um, do you ever feel like sometimes, like when you're in the heat of an argument, that you make decisions on gut feelings, like you're just in the middle of it and there's a lot of emotion involved, so we might react a certain way out of emotion instead of thinking things through?
Yeah, probably. I probably just get angry just because I'm, heated from arguing, and that kind of makes it worse.
Yeah, totally. Um, Labeling or judging. So do you ever feel um, that you might think a certain way about mom, or think certain things about mom, or judge her for reacting in certain ways when you're in the middle of an argument?
Yeah, she's just like, sometimes I just think that she is a bad mom because she yells so much
Hmm. I understand that totally.
and just really mean and makes me do more than I should.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. Um, Always taking the blame. Do you feel like you're always taking the blame, or maybe do you never feel like you're taking the blame?
I feel like I put a lot of the blame on her instead of taking some of it.
Yeah. Um, let's see what else we have here. Do you ever feel like you have the mentality of, sometimes we say I need instead of I want? Do you ever feel like that? You know, how there's a difference between absolutely needing something and just wanting something, but sometimes we dig our heels in and think or say or argue that we need something. Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah, probably, like, especially with like wanting to take time when I come home from school before I walk my dog.
Yeah,
I feel
totally.
like I need it, but I probably just want it.
That's a great example, Katie. That's a great one. Um, let's see. Do you ever just feel like um, you just can't do something, like it just seems like the end of the world? Maybe it's that example of coming home from school and you feel like, I just can't take the dog out right now. I just can't, like it'll just be the end of the world if I do that.
Yeah, it feels like that a lot because especially I'm so tired coming home from school, so I think I just feel like it's the end of the world if I like have to do it. I think that's why I argue with my mom a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Sometimes this kind of goes back to the exaggerating one, but the statement, it's horrible, terrible, or awful, using those kind of words instead of not good.
Yeah, I probably
Sometimes,
say really exaggerated things.
yeah, sure. So, um, what I hear you saying now that we've gone through that list is some of your main ones that you um, are mental mind games that can be played on us sometimes are just that things can be really negative sometimes and that they're never positive. Maybe when we're interacting with mom and maybe it seems like an argument, um, sometimes we blame mom and never take responsibility for our actions. And then another one I heard you saying was the need versus the want. So this is really awesome that we were able to identify some of these things and just talk through and even become aware that sometimes our mind can play tricks on us, and these things can kind of creep in and take over in the heat of an argument. And right now it might seem silly to think about some of those things, but when we're in the middle of interacting with mom, it's a lot harder said than done to not think that way, right?
Yeah, I think it's just like very emotional when I'm like angry or when she gets angry and it makes me angry or vice versa. Like it's just very emotional, so I don't really think about much else besides wanting to make my point and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's completely valid. So this last thing that I was thinking we could go over today is this sheet called Challenging Unhelpful Thoughts. And I gave your mom a copy, but this will kind of be your homework for next time. And how it looks is up top, there's a box. And in that box, after you have an argument with mom, or even if you want to do it before, now that we kind of talked through maybe some of your unhelpful thoughts or unwanted thoughts that can play mind games on us, taking one of those specific thoughts. So maybe it's the whole need versus want. This is just an example. So we take that unhelpful thought of needing something that maybe necessarily we don't, but argue that it is. And then it just goes through some challenges on that thought. So we can really think about it and we can maybe try and replace it with a better one. So the challenges are, is there any evidence that contradicts this thought? So is there anything that says otherwise? Could you identify any patterns of unhelpful thinking? So what's kind of surrounding, so sorry, hello. So what's kind of surrounding this thought, what's causing it, what's creating it? And then what would you say to a friend who had had this thought in a similar situation? So if one of your best friends was having an argument with her mom and she was kind of dealing with this same thought process, how would you talk through with her this unhelpful thought? And then you also look at some good things about thinking this way, and then maybe some not so good things about thinking this way. Also, how just taking a look to the future, because sometimes when we're in the argument, it feels like it's just the end of the world and it's the biggest deal. But how will you think about it in 6 months, once things have calmed down? Or you can even start to say, how will I think about this in a week? Will it really be a big deal? Is it worth it to get so escalated in this situation and argue these things? And then lastly, is there any other way of looking at this situation? So how can we take the unhelpful thought and make it a balanced thought? So I've sent that sheet home with mom, and then hopefully next time, either before or after you get in an argument, you can go through that sheet and just really assess what's going on in your mind, because sometimes we can have tricks played in our mind and it can be really complicated. And if that's a sheet that's helpful to you, then we can get you a bunch of them, and hopefully that can be a helpful resource. But do you have any questions, Katie, before we end our session?
No, I think that makes sense.
Okay, awesome. Well, I've had so much fun with you today, and I hope you have a great weekend.
All right, thanks. You too.
Bye, Katie.
Bye.